Hello, everybody. Ron Callis here with another episode of Automation Unplugged. This is episode 99, brought to you by my day job, of course, over at One Firefly. Wearing plenty of Firefly gear today. It is Wednesday, February 19th. It is just a little bit after 12:30 p.m. I hope today is finding you well. And let me jump over to Facebook just to make sure we are streaming. And it does seem that we are streaming live. So if you're out there watching, don't forget to drop a comment, say hello, tell me where you're coming to us from. And if you like what we're going to go through here today, give us a like, give us a share. It helps us feed the Facebook algorithm to ultimately get this show out there to more people. So today's show is a little bit different, kind of leading up to our 100th show. I wanted to bring a different type of content and guest to you today. And for those of you that know me personally, you'll know that I find when I'm talking to my friends or customers in the industry, many of my customers are my friends, but when I'm interacting with you, often we end up just talking principally about business and growing the business and the challenges in business and entrepreneurship. And earlier, middle of last year, we actually made at One Firefly a pretty big decision to move in the direction of a particular set of changes and implementing some business practices that I frankly had been hearing about for many years. There were many integrators, and even in some cases, some manufacturers that had started implementing a system called the Traction EOS system. And I'd been hearing it enough to where I finally decided to dig deeper and brought my leadership team in, and we dug deeper, and we actually adopted this methodology of business and started practicing it. And there's a whole process to it. And so I thought what I would bring you today is actually our coach, if you will, in the world of EOS. They're called an implementer. And so I've got my implementation coach for EOS Traction here as our guest today. And his name is Cesar Quintero. And I'm going to bring him in now, and we're gonna have some fun. So again, thanks for joining us, and I'm bringing Cesar in right now. Cesar, how's it going, sir? There you are, Cesar. I hear you. I do. Yes, I know you've been challenging some tech. You've been experiencing some technology gremlins, as I say here. Well, I appreciate it. And let me see here. You just jumped off screen. We are, as technology always gives challenges, especially when streaming live. The software I use also decided to force upon me some software upgrades. And so what we are streaming with right now is their latest studio. And to be completely honest, it's a little glitchy. My guests will like drop in and out of being live. So we're going to roll with it, people.
Hey, it's technology. We're good with it.
Exactly. It's technology. And don't forget, if you're out there streaming live, I see that we have a nice growing audience here. Give us a like, give us a comment, and again, tell us where you're coming from. And as we get into it with Cesar, pose your questions. Throw him some fastballs and some hard questions about entrepreneurship and or traction, and we're all going to benefit from his responses. But Cesar, if we could start with your background, just if you could tell the audience who you are and where you come from.
Yeah, so I'm originally from South America, Venezuela, and I grew up. My background is in industrial engineering, so I'm a process engineer, and I was in Procter and Gamble for a couple of years. Like 4 years in the consumer research part. And at 24, I decided to move to a new country, get married, and start a new business. So That's my country was going through a little rough spot, and it still is. But so at 24, I decided to move to Miami and start a food delivery company. It was a little ahead of its time. That's 16, 17 years ago now. And
like a Uber Eats sort of thing, or
kind of, we cooked.
Different?
We had a commissary kitchen, so we cooked and delivered meals. I had to convince people it was convenient to have your meals delivered back then, believe it or not.
Wow.
No, pre-Facebook, pre-everything, right? So, but the company grew with time and grew in complexity it's a logistics company, it's delivery, it's cooking. And little by little, I didn't know what to do. I started this food business with no food background, and I found this book called Traction, the one you were mentioning, and it really changed my way of seeing how a business should be run.
This guy
yeah,
here.
there you go. Yeah. So it really helped me get myself out of the business, work more on the business, and empower my employees to everybody take ownership. And it created a true environment of accountability and transparency, where within the first year and a half, we doubled in size, because up to then, I was the worst enemy of my own company because I was so involved in everything and every decision. So this book and this system helped us really set us free in growth and accountability and transparency. So I'm a big advocate now.
Now, I want to peel some layers back on that, but I am going to
Sure.
put up on the screen here just for anyone that is watching. I know I have folks listening as well, but if you're watching, I'm putting up a whole series of books in the Traction product family or series of education. But you had mentioned that you had challenge when you were running that food delivery business of growing, and it was challenges around, quote, getting out of your own way. How did you end up getting out of your way? Like mechanically, what happened in the business where you in fact got out of your way?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest issues we have as human beings and as managers, as leaders, is that we think we always have the answer. And if we don't, we make it up, or we seem we have to, right? And I think that was a notion I had about leadership or about management around team. It was, I always needed to know and needed to say where we were going. And I think this book is more about collaboration, and every person knows best what they do best, right? And what I love to do, there's people that don't like to do, and what I don't like to do, there's people that love to do. So just creating.
I would just say I would challenge. I don't know that everyone knows what they do best, but if you challenge them to think about it critically, they probably could tell you what they do best.
That's a good assessment. I guess everybody knows what they like to do and don't like to do. Let's put it that way. But sometimes it doesn't align with what you actually do, right? So that's where your critical thinking has to happen, for sure.
So did you end up, did you have to hire more people to grow, or did you just have a team and you just realized that, hey, I'm going to do these set of roles in the business and I'm going to have these other people carry on these other roles? And
what I realized is that I wasn't allowing the people around me to do what they were supposed to do, right? And I wanted to be in control of everything, and I wanted to be on top of making sure that everything was done correctly. So I think that was the biggest shift within the system, in really understanding that it's not a lot about me. It's about how we can all help each other and we win together, right? We all can do this together. And it's not about me proving that I'm the best leader, me proving that I'm the best teammate and delivering the things. So
what was the end result with that business? Are you still involved in that business, or did you successfully have an exit, or what's the?
Yeah, within 3 years. So basically, there's a concept in EOS where you do an accountability chart of who takes what responsibility, and you map it out with sales and marketing, operations, finance and support, then the integrator and the visionary. And I was basically holding 4 out of those 5 seats when I started this process. And what this process helped me do was determine which seat I wanted to be in, which was a visionary. And then each of those seats got occupied by one of my employees that was there, and they took ownership of that function. Within 3.5 years, 4 years, I was completely out of the operational part of the business, where they really made most of the decisions and they knew what they needed to do. And I just put the vision on board. So 3.5 years ago, I sold half of my business. to the integrator, who's the person who's the operating manager now. So now I more provide vision. I'm still involved in the business, but more in a visionary capacity. And I love to do this for passion. So this is where I spend most of my time now.
So tell me about what this is. I know that you're a consultant for us and many other businesses, but
don't say the word consultant.
All right. Implementer, coach. I don't know. There's a whole plethora of synonyms. Yeah. Oh no, I got in trouble. My bill's going to double next month. But no. So tell us, what is the implementer role, and how do you play that out for businesses? Like, what does that even look like?
Yeah, so the implementer, our job is really to teach the system to companies. So we come in, and as I experienced in my company, when I try to do it myself, I went through the book, I went through the system, but I was still the leader, I was still the voice, and then getting everybody on board was more difficult for that. So the implementer is really a person who doesn't specialize in your company per se, but specializes in the system. So I hired an implementer. They came in, and within 6 months, we had most of the tools already implemented. Our team knew how to do it. I had experience with it as well. And that's where we started gaining traction. And within a year and a half, our implementer was out of the door, and then we could self manage it internally.
And is that common? Is it common that the implementer is engaged for like the initial period of following the process and the methods, and then they're out, or do they always stay involved?
That's one of our main. That's why I don't like being called a consultant, because consultants, I feel, sometimes create dependency, and businesses need them. I think as implementers, we come in, we teach the system, but our job is to really have it run in an effective way where you don't need us anymore, right? So we're specialists on EOS and what the EOS concepts are, which is a traction book and all of these concepts.
I'm going to put on the screen here. I'm going to see if I can make it a little bit bigger. Maybe we'll do it this way.
I would do the other one, the 6 key components, I think.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, let me do that. So all right.
There we go.
Walk us through what are the 6 key components, and how do you help businesses implement this?
Yeah. So as a summary, and this is summarizing the traction book, right? It talks about every business, no matter what business you are, every business has 137 types of issues. And if you narrow them down to 6 key components, if you focus on these 6 key components, every business can get better and better, right? And you create a culture where everybody's aligned in vision, everybody's gearing towards traction, and it's a healthy and open and honest environment for the team. So what these 6 key components are, the more you work on them, the more aligned your team is, and the more you accomplish your goals. So basically, the first key component is all about vision, and it's defining that vision, having a defined vision through the 8 questions, they call it. But it's, what are your core values? What is your core focus? Why do you do what you do? Where are you going to be in 10 years, in 3 years, in 1 year? What are your rocks? What are your issues that are preventing you from getting there? So it's having a well-defined vision, but that it's also shared by all. Because if everybody's pulling on their own direction on what the vision is for the company, you're not rowing on the same direction. So it'll be harder to get there faster, right? So you want everybody aligned with this vision. So it's not only defining, but having it shared by all in your team. Right.
I just to focus on that just for a moment. I know that when you and I started talking again, because I've known you for 10 years, but when you and I started talking again early last year in 2019, it was really an area for me where I didn't personally, as a business owner, I didn't know how to get there to this concept of a vision. I had this perception, and maybe some of those listening can relate to this, that, on so many corporate websites, you see this BS vision, mission language, and it's all this corporate speak. And I just had always struggled with what exactly does that mean, and how exactly does it translate to day-to-day activity within the business? And I think responded quite well to the vision within the Traction EOS system as to what vision means. Can you just provide a little more maybe detail on there's 8 questions that get answered. It's not a one sentence.
It's not, yeah. And that was my thing when I was part of going through this process. It's like, what if I get it wrong? Like this is so heavy. How can I put this in words that and the perfect words? What I love about EOS in general, and it's not only on the vision, but I think that it happens on most of these. It takes a practical approach to things. So it's not, this isn't going to be at 100% when you're going through it. And I think that's what we expect a lot of times when we try to craft it in a way. But let's answer these questions. Let's put them through the ringer. Let's filter them through. Let's stress test them. Let's bring it to the team. Then let's come back. Let's do this. So I think that approach of not being too permanent and more flexible and more in alignment of what everybody's looking for, and having those questions drawn in the way they are makes it easier to draft where we want to be. For sure.
That makes sense. And for those of you out there listening that know me, I mean, this is an area where I had personally been weak, and I knew it. I just didn't know how to get past it. And this system and the coaching from Cesar really helped my leadership team and I craft a vision that we could get behind. And in fact, we rolled it out to our full team. Some of them are watching and listening right now. Actually just last month in January at an all staff event in New York City.
Nice.
Which, by the way, Cesar, the score was better than 9 out of 10 as reviewed by the team. I know we're going to talk about that in our next quarterly meeting, but it was received well by most.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
In terms of, all right, there's these other pieces of this pie. Can you go through what they are and what it means to get better at them?
Sure, of course. So the people component is what I was talking about before, is having the right people in the right seats. So a lot of times we talk about, having in the right seats. We start with right seats because we need a clear structure of who does what and who's accountable for what. So that's the structure I was talking about before, that I almost was in every seat because everybody came to me for everything. And the more clarity and transparency there is on who does what and structure in the business, if I need to talk about X, I go to this person. If I need to go to Y, I need to go to this person. And it doesn't create mom-dad scenarios with mom says yes, dad says no, we get loop around, and it creates complexity within organizations. So having a clear structure of who does what is pivotal, but then having the people there that get it, want it, and have the capacity to do those things and those seats is pivotal for the right seats conversation. And then the right sorry.
No, I was going to say, go through that again. Go through that in a little more detail. Because I'm going to say, of all the businesses I work with every day, I know, I'll just say a random generic example. They may have that person in sales out there putting the wins on the board.
Yeah.
But they're a miserable person to work with, but they put up with them because they're putting wins on the board. Or that technician that knows how to do all the installation work or knows how to build that rack of equipment beautifully, but they're not great for the company culture or maybe even a cultural match. How does a business operator think about that? Or within the traction way of thinking, what's the right answer there?
And that's why you need to talk about right people as well. So right seats give you structure and performance, right? But right people are people who behave the way you expect them to behave. When you have core values and they're defined as part of your vision, and these are the expectations of, if you're not there, this is how they're supposed to behave. And that's what we call a fit, right? And a lot of times we make fit and it's very subjective. It's just like, this guy doesn't work in our team. But it's hard for us to describe why. What I love about this is that it creates a people analyzer. So it takes all of this subjective feeling issues and it creates an objective way of seeing, are they living these behaviors, and how are they mostly, or are they not? And
so actually a way of scoring
go through that. Yeah. So we score each core value and how each person performs around the core value, because they could be the best at performing their job. That means they're the right seats because they know how to do their job. But if they're the right people, I call them terrorists, because then if they can get away with stuff, people around them can get away with stuff. And it's kind of what happens with a rotten apple, right? The whole batch goes sour. Yeah. So this is all about understanding who you need on your team and who you want on your team, and then understanding that they're good at their job. So that's the right people and right seats conversation for sure.
Excellent. Let's keep going through it.
All right. And then once you know you have the right people, right seat, and you know where you're going with your vision, that's where data comes in, because it objectively tells you you got the right people in the right seats, but also doing the right things. Because a lot of times we can love someone doing, as a person, we love, and they have all the abilities and all the capacities in paper. But then at the end of the day, if they don't achieve their measures and they don't achieve their metrics, if there's, we can't improve what we can't measure, right? So if we don't have metrics and we're not tracking things, how do we know if they're performing a good job or not? How many installations they had to do and what time? Were they under budget? If they're in marketing, how many leads did we bring in? How many closings did we get? Those are numbers that we need to get. And every single person in your organization needs to know what their number is, because it's good for you. It's good for them, right? It creates clarity.
I was just in a meeting, and I haven't checked the Facebook data to know if this person is watching. I told this person to watch this interview, or I recommended it. But this person was telling me that just recently, did they feel that they could have intelligent conversations about their business performance? And I'm referring to, revenue numbers, profitability numbers, labor utilization numbers, things such as that, because they had put in the hard work around building those dashboards and that proper chart of accounts in their P&L. So they, in fact, could look at the right pieces of data to know whether their business is actually making money. So many people, from my experience, I imagine for you, when all the businesses you work with, Cesar, it's got to be quite common that people they don't know the exact health of their business. And that's just terrifying.
Yeah, most of us do. I call it bank accounting. It's how much money do I have in the bank, and that's what matters. Instead of really understanding your numbers, understanding what's driving those numbers, what's driving the lack of numbers, and etc. So yeah, I was guilty of that 100%. It's not having visibility, and also not wanting to have visibility too. Sometimes sure. I wanted to hide behind the chaos, and I wanted to hide behind excuses and not deliverables, right? And there's a lot of people that like to live that way within the company, is, oh, my role is too complicated. There's no way you can measure what I do, but everybody can be measured in performance for sure, right? So it's finding that way. Data
is there's actually a people analyzer. I don't even know the right way to say it, so you'll say it. But there's the World of Culture Index.
Oh yeah.
Right. And so there, you'll describe to our audience what that is. But you had actually recently pointed me to that, and I ran an audit across my whole team, and it scores you on 6 or 7 different criteria. And I was just going to add that my logic quotient was a 10 out of 10.
Wow.
Yeah, which I think scared the person that was describing the data to me. But it just means that data is really important to me.
Yeah.
And having that visibility, it gives me as an operator a lot of confidence in terms of making decisions.
Yeah, for sure. And the time, and what you were saying before, the time it takes to put together could be a little cumbersome at the beginning, but once it's set, it's just automatic. You have to have the people plugging in those numbers, and then you're able to see trends and track what's going on, and you can, foresee things that are about to happen. So
it's so powerful. Okay, so we've gone through the top 3, the first half of the pie. We got 3.
And those are the long ones, so we'll streamline the last 3. So once you know where you're going and you have the right people doing the right seats, in the right thing, doing the right things, that's when issues come up. And issues in EOS and traction is not a negative thing. Issues are things we need to talk about, we need to solve. Every business has issues, and we all know this. The problem is when those issues don't bubble up and people don't share. Like the frontline people, they don't tell you things are wrong, or they don't tell you things are going on. That's a blind spot for us, right? So what we want to have a mechanism and a system where it bubbles up issues all the time. And then it's not only bubbling them up, but it's also actually discussing them and solving. How many people get stuck in meetings that just report or are discussing things and then they never get to anything? So the IDS method is to identify the issue, identify the core reason, not just a superficial, symptom, but what is a core issue? Why is this issue happening, and how can we solve it, right? And then we discuss it as a team, and then we have to have next steps and commitments out of each discussion, because if not, it's just discussing for discussion's sake. So that's what the issue key component is all about.
Cesar, I admitted I'm using this brand new studio software, and I think I've just figured out how to do something I always love to do, which is share comments. So I've got some comments here on Facebook that, again, for our live audience, they'll see me do this, and or if they're watching video, our podcast audience, you'll just have to trust I'll read what I'm putting on screen. But Wes says, hey, Cesar, welcome. These are a couple of members of our team. Kendall, you know Kendall. Hey, Cesar, glad Kendall, you're joining us. And Liz, she's actually one of our writers. She says, really looking forward to hearing all about EOS today. And I have Ted. He's one of our account managers. He says, hey, Cesar, any rocks you're working on that you'd like to share with us? So what are your rocks?
Oh, yeah, man.
We haven't actually talked about rocks.
We haven't talked about rocks yet.
All right, so let's do that now. What is a rock?
Yeah, so the bottom component is traction, and the traction component is all about doing. So vision is up in the sky where we're dreaming where we want to be, why we do things, what we are in the world. But the traction is down in the ground, is doing the work, right? So Gino in the book says, vision without traction is hallucination. We can dream all we want, but if we don't do, we'll never get there, right? So traction is all about rocks, and rocks is around prioritizing. What are the top things we need to be working on in order to move towards that vision, in order to move the company forward towards that vision, in order to move all my tasks into that vision, right? So the rocks are, a lot of times when we say, if we focus on everything, we don't focus on anything, right? So the rocks is the premise of, you've got the jar with, and you put the 5 rocks in, right? You've heard of that before. And
yeah, it's like the college professor sits in front of the classroom, exactly. And he says, how much is going to fit in this jar? And
yeah, is this jar full with 5 rocks? And students say yeah, and then he drizzles in pebbles, and the pebbles trickle in, and then the sand trickles in again, right? And in our environment, the sand is all the noise. It's customer complaints, it's emails, it's things that that don't really matter in the grand scheme of things. They could be urgent right now, but they're not urgent in the grand scheme of things. The pebbles are your job. They're the things that you need to do. They're your tasks, right? They're part of your job. They're your accountabilities in your accountability chart. They're your job description. They're what you need to do. And the rocks are the things that really move the company forward, right? And the position forward. Those are the top priorities that I need to focus on. So if I walk into a day where I'm focusing all on sand, and I put all the sand in first, and then I have to do my job, the pebbles, the rocks don't fit in the vase. That's the analogy, and that's why they're called rocks, is because if I focus on the rocks first, if I focus on a day that I walk in to the office and I say, hey, this is the one thing I'm going to do today, and I'm not going to leave until I get this done, that's what you're focusing on. You're focusing on priorities, and then all the rest will just trickle throughout the day. But you're sure that you're moving forward on those priorities. So that's what we call rocks, right?
And then I was just going to admit, I have a rock this quarter, and one of my rocks is, now that we've rolled out at One Firefly our formal vision. And in fact, let me see here. I'm going to see, we're working live, folks, here. That's how we are when we're live. So I even, we printed ours out, and
there you go.
Let's see here. I'll put that on screen. So we printed ours out, and all of our staff have this handy notebook. But how do you ultimately, back to that people component, drive and reward and acknowledge your team when they're demonstrating those attributes? So one of my rocks is actually building that system. And so I'm working with our manager of people operations, and we're designing some cool programs to make sure that we're really making culture or values and our core values a part of our culture here at One Firefly. And so, Ted, you didn't ask me for one of my rocks, but I gave you one of mine. But Cesar, you're not going to get away. What's one of your rocks for this quarter?
Ooh. One of my. So I have different rocks because I work at Fit2Go, which is my food company, and I have the consulting side of this. But my rock on the consulting side is I'm bringing on 2 associates. So one of my rocks is helping them go through the process of the whole implementation process for the first 3 days, at least with one company, with each of them. So that's my biggest rock this quarter. It's more on the mentoring side and coaching side for associates now. Yeah.
And I'm going to put up on the screen here a few more. So we have Chris Gamble. He's one of our listeners from the UK. He says, have a great show. He says, by the way, he said, hi, give some British flag there. He says, hey, Ron and Cesar. He says he's going to, fascinating. I'm going to watch later. And sounds like he probably has a job to install or a client to go meet with, which is the beauty of this being a recording. You can obviously go back at any time. Actually, we just had a Venezuela comment. This is system design.
There you go.
And go Venezuela. One of our owners, Angel, is from Venezuela too. There you go.
Cool.
And we have Angel. Speaking of Angel, this one is one of our team. He says, EOS sounds awesome. Cesar is an EOS master. There you go. You're a Jedi.
All right, I got it.
A Jedi master. Okay, so what have we not talked about here on this wheel?
So I want to finish on the traction side, understanding what our rocks are, but then also having a meeting pulse, because a lot of times, you think and you set your goals and you set your priorities, but then you put them in a cupboard or in a drawer and you forget about them, right? I don't know if that's your case, but that was my case always, right? And what we need is also a meeting rhythm where there's a meeting pulse where our team and everyone around you is asking you constantly, what's your rock? How are you doing on your rock? Are you on track or off track, right? Because on vision, we're thinking, where do we need to be in 5 years? Where do we need to be in 3 years? Where do we need to be in 1 year, right? And then where do we need to be this quarter? But then on traction, what you're doing is you're really going forward now is, what do I need to do today to get closer to that weekly metric? What do I need to get to that weekly metric to get closer to that 13-week sprint, which is a quarter, right? And then what do I need to do this quarter to get to that year? What do I need to do this year to get to those 3 years? So where vision, you're planning backwards. On traction, you're moving forward. So you have to make sure that every week you have your level 10 meetings, and we call them level 10. Just Google level 10 meetings. And there's a video of Gino explaining how it works. It's the most efficient meeting out there. I think it's strategic. It takes you to the heart of the issues, and you're mostly resolving and discussing things. Where I feel most of us get lost on the meeting, kind of conundrum of reporting, and meetings about the meetings, and then meeting about the second meeting. This is a very efficient meeting where your team just gets together once a week, 90 minutes, same time, same place, start on time, end on time, same agenda, and then you just power through, and it's a strategic, powerful meeting that you have every week, making sure that everybody's moving those boulders, those rocks forward, right?
I can speak on behalf of my leadership team here at One Firefly, who currently is executing level 10 meetings. We're rolling it out to the balance of our team here in the coming quarters. There was a pretty profound positive benefit to us doing this. And it was that, we're I'm in the seats on the bus. I'm the crazy visionary with all these ideas, all these interesting places to go and things to do. And I've surrounded myself with, really a tremendous team at every level at One Firefly. And in particular at my leadership team level, where these are the people I lean on to help me run the company. And up until this idea of traction, rocks, and meetings, there was, I'm going to say, organized chaos in terms of projects. We didn't use the word rocks, but I'll say big initiatives. And then at what point do all the leaders and the company have their quota of rocks met? Thus, nothing new can be put in the jar because the jar is full. And at what point do you then evaluate what rocks go in the jar and what should we perhaps do in a subsequent quarter? We didn't have that system. And so what happened is rocks would be put on play. Again, I'm going to use EOS terminology now. Rocks were tasked, but maybe not fairly. And so people would want to say yes because they want the company to be better. They want to succeed. Maybe they, in some cases, want to make me happy, but they'd say yes to things that weren't realistic. And so what would happen, and what's worse than when someone takes on a project and then they don't succeed because it was never realistic for them to succeed, and they're upset, and then maybe their manager, in this case, I was upset, and at the whole time we were set up to fail to begin with. And that's been my personal experience with just that simple concept of rocks and meetings, is that it just provides full transparency to what are the big projects on the board.
No, and it definitely flexes that predictability muscle, because that first quarter that you're setting up your first rocks is hey, we're going to achieve the world. It's what you're saying. Sometimes we set the expectations too high, but then with time, with practice, predictability is a muscle. We need to practice long term and short term. So little by little, you'll get a grasp and saying, you know what, this is our slow season, so we can do more, or this is our high season, we can do less. What projects can we put in, and what projects can we do and what can't? But then we're all holding each other accountable. And these meeting pulls, the meeting pulls, also getting the quarterly pulls, the weekly level 10s, the annual meetings, all of this just helps facilitate and build that muscle. It's the gym for the predictability muscle, right?
No,
so yeah, for sure.
We're early in we're still newbies, we're still babies, but we're I can say that I'm certainly enjoying it. And I know my team.
No, you guys are pros.
I wouldn't
you had a solid base. You had a solid base.
We had a great team, and we had some of the ingredients right. We just needed structure.
100%.
All right. So the component here I see we've not talked about is process.
See, that's the one we always want to leave last, because that's a boring one. We don't want to talk about process. Says the process engineer.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, this is all based on the E-Myth mentality, right? So it's creating and documenting the processes. So no matter who comes into your business, they can be plug and play, right? So it's the McDonald's of every business, no matter what business you are. We need the process and systems in place so that everybody knows what they're supposed to be doing. But at the same time, they're also not shoved into a drawer, but it's mostly around they're being followed by all. And every process has an owner. That way, every owner is accountable for the process being updated, people following the process. And these are the core processes, right? These are processes that everybody touches around the organization. It's a people process, the marketing, the sales, the accounting process. So these are processes that are high-level processes that everybody should know how to do, and everybody follows it. Because there's nothing more complicated than people and a company. So we need to simplify everything as much as we can. And this is a way to simplify that and systematize.
Awesome. What has been your experience with companies implementing this? What do you call it? This set of practices?
The system. Yeah. The system. Yeah. This is.
What have you seen?
So the companies that struggle the most implementing are the companies who don't have the right team. When you already know within your gut, these people are not the right fit, they don't live our core values, or not the right culture. And a lot of times they don't want change because they like living in that, subjective area. That's where it doesn't really work. This is a system that really creates transparency and accountability across all functions. So if you're a company that wants visibility, that wants accountability, that you want to all overperform, what I've seen in One Firefly is surprising, because you see the leadership team and everybody wants to one-up each other, right? But in a good way, right? It's supportive, and everybody is supportive. And how can I help you achieve it? And how can I help you that? That's what leads to a great team. There's other companies that it's not like that as much. And I've witnessed that more and more, where some people are in it more for themselves and understand I'll do this system if it works for me. And I'll do the system if I can get my stuff done better. And it's not so much around the team. So what I've seen is a lot of people like to live in chaos. And for those, this system doesn't work.
No, that makes a lot of sense. I'm going to give a few more shout outs. Laura, she says, "Hey, Cesar, are there certain types of companies that your process works better for? Is there a minimum number of employees needed, for example?"
Yeah, so the principle is a for-profit business. So it has to be people who have an interest in profit, because a nonprofit is more volunteers. So it's a different type of accountability. So it's a for-profit business. typically we say 10 to 250 employees is our sweet spot. A lot of companies that scale and are at the 6, 7 employee and are ready to scale, it's a perfect time to do it. But typically it's 10 to 250 employees. And then in the scope of what you do, every business. Like I have law firms, I have marketing firms, I have a jet charter company. There's a bank, there's hotels. This doesn't focus too much on the external piece. This doesn't focus on what your product or service is. This focuses on how you deal internally as a team. So any company that has people is basically great for this.
Got it. I'm going to put another comment up. This is Tina. This is actually our manager of people operations at One Firefly. And actually, I can say, Cesar, our meetings with you last year resulted in this job being created and us bringing Tina onto the team.
Yeah.
So, Tina, you can give Cesar an attaboy later on. Give him a text
Not
message.
me. It's a leadership decision.
Yeah, no,
I just facilitate.
You just facilitate. So she says, yay for recognizing employees that demonstrate our core values. Can't wait to see this come to fruition. Well, Tina, my partner in crime in getting that created. So
I love it.
Be a lot of fun. And Wes, I'm going to read the full one. It looks like my UI is not populating the full text. It says, Wes says, I really like how the EOS system forces everyone within an organization to look inward as well as outward to help improve the business. It calls attention to self and organizational strengths and weaknesses. Appreciate both of you being open and honest about your own personal shortcomings.
There's a lot of those, by the way.
I am mostly shortcoming. So, Wes, it did take it. I was not born knowing that or knowing how to talk about that, but
me neither. Yeah.
The older I get, and certainly the longer I've been in entrepreneurship, I was just joking with, again, the customer I was talking to before the show. The longer I'm at this, the more I realize I don't know.
Yeah. And something to Wes's point, though, I think it's so true. And I just lost my train of thought live. But the looking inward is, a lot of times we think that we learn by doing. And a lot of us, and I think in your industry too, we're very manual. So we like to do stuff and get things accomplished by doing. And we don't realize that the more we do, if we don't stop and reflect, we can't learn.
Yes.
And that's what the looking inward and outward is. What Wes is saying is, it's really stopping. It's taking that time to stop and say, hey, what did we do right? What did we do wrong? How can we make this better? Because if we don't stop and reflect, we'll never learn. Right? So I think that's a great point, Wes.
It's so easy to simply be busy being busy. Many people that know me have known I say this all the time.
Yeah.
And nothing bothers me more than being busy for the sake of being busy. Yeah. I want to be effective. I want to be moving the ball forward. It's just part of my DNA. I was born that way. I just want to know I'm moving. Whatever the objective is, I want to be moving it forward.
Yep.
And I love this system because it gives us clarity around that. I am going to put another graphic on the screen. It looks like it might be a little bit smaller, but this is the graphic for EOS that I know that you and I went through, or we are going through here at One Firefly. Yep. Can you describe what this is and how it relates to the conversation?
Yeah, so this is the EOS Proven Process. So this is a process of implementation. And I think it's the best thing around the whole system and the book and concepts, because as a business owner, I used to read all these books, right? E-Myth, Start With Why, Traction, Rockefeller Habits, all of these books. And then I'm like, okay, what do I bring into my business? What do I do first? What do I do next? So I was creating this chaos within my company of not understanding, what exactly we needed to implement and how, right? And what I love about this is it's a systemized approach into day one. We talk about the 6 key components. We talk about what the process looks like, kind of what we're doing in this. And that's a little circle there. It's a 90-minute meeting. And then after that, you go into a focus day. And the focus day is all about, you implement the accountability chart and how to lead as a leadership team. And then you do the scorecard and you do the rocks, and then you talk about the meeting pulse. So those are things. So little by little, you're adding different tools to different days. And it's a structured approach of how that is going to play out. And the best thing is that you're not just learning, but you're also practicing while learning. So between one day and another, a full month goes by. So you've been practicing the concepts, and then you start talking about vision, about the 8 questions, and you come into this, more up and above thinking, right? And then you go into a rhythm, and this is the rhythm that you see at the end, which is quarter, year. And that's part of the meeting pulse, because now you're really planning, and it's all the strategic planning on what do I need to do this quarter to achieve this year, this quarter, this year, and then the year, what do I need to do in 5, 3 again, and then boom, then you reset every year, and you're constantly reflecting on what needs to happen. So this is a perfect rhythm of implementation that EOS has mastered, and I think it's one of the best things, aside from the level 10 meeting, the people analyzer, and this is what really sets traction in EOS aside from most of the other systems.
And if you are out there watching live and you have questions about this process, don't forget to drop the comment into Facebook. At what point would a business, Cesar, decide whether they should hire an implementer? And I'm stating the obvious here. You are one of many implementers. So how would you even know where those people are to be found?
Yeah. So, sorry.
I was going to say, and whether they can do this themselves.
Yeah. So there's a website called EOS Worldwide .com, and there's a way, if you want to self-implement, you can pay for Basecamp there, and you have all of the video tutorials, and you can go through those. You can bring them into your company and go through that process. You can also hire an implementer. There's 350 of us worldwide right now. We have a base here in the US, UK, and Australia. And then there's Latin America as well. So there's implementers across the globe where they can help you and assist you in this process as well. So you can self-implement through Basecamp on eosworldwide.com. You can also implement here. You can also read part of the books and the graph you brought up at the beginning, Ron. Traction is more of a reference book. It tells you all the concepts. If you want more of a fable, it's Get a Grip is a great book. It's the last one here. Get a Grip is a story of a company going through the EOS process. So you can see it, and it's more of a fable of a company going through it. It's a tech company. It's great. Rocket Fuel is more around the dynamic between the integrator and the visionary, right? And then How to Be a Great Boss is for every manager. It talks a lot about tools on what you're talking about, how to, hire, review, reward, fire people based on core values and based on how to be a good manager and a good coach, right? So it talks a lot around that. So
we just recently gave out this book to our team.
What the heck is EOS? I love that book. Yeah, that's a simplified version of all these concepts, which is awesome, because if you don't really want to spend all the time reading all this library, that's a perfect book to get for sure.
Awesome. Cesar, you've been very generous with your time. Again, I know you have a client meeting there in Miami, and you found time to talk with us. So thank you for that. If our audience, anyone would like to get in touch with you directly, what is the best way? And I'm actually going to type it into the crawler and potentially put it up here on the screen if I can make it work.
Sure. So my website is theprofitrecipe.com, and my email is Cesar, CESAR, at theprofitrecipe.com. So that's my email.
So I'm going to put theprofitrecipe.com. Tell me if I got that right. Actually,
all right.
Oh no, I think I just broke it. Profitrecipe.com. It's gotta be in technology. Sometimes we struggle. There we go. Did I do it right?
Yeah.
All right. Well, Cesar, thank you for everything you've done for One Firefly, first of all. But also thank you for being a guest on episode number 99.
99, pivotal episode.
It is. We've been at this for in April, it will be 3 years.
Wow. That's awesome.
Doing these interviews. And technology still manages to give us headaches. So I'm glad so far it's been cooperating for the last 45 minutes or so.
That's good. Yeah. It wasn't before.
It wasn't,
For me.
sometimes it goes that way. It's like total, I'm
Yeah.
going to pull my hair out, and then you go live and it behaves. So
It behaved. All right.
Cesar, thank you, sir.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Thank you all.
All right, gang, there you have it. That was episode 99 of Automation Unplugged. I am going to put up on the screen. Don't forget, if you're watching live, Automation Unplugged is now available as a podcast. So what we do is we take the interview section from the middle. We cut out the banter from the front of the show before I bring the guest in, and any banter at the end. And we cut that together, do a little audio magic on it, and we put that out as a podcast, usually a week after the show. So just go to your favorite platform, search Automation Unplugged, and you can grab that. And on just one more note, if you want to contact me or anyone here at One Firefly, you can go to our website or you can go to our phone number. So again, thanks for watching and listening, and I will see you next time.